Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:14 p.m. Central. Good to have everybody here. Tyrone Ellington, Mark Eddy, Professor Wham, part of our Halloween show. We got a good group of eclectic misfits here, so this is going to be a good one. Let's do it. Next week's Jacoby Matat. He's got a car like Christine and hearses and dresses up like weird stuff. We're going to talk about his book, Pumpkin Guts, The Hellbound Halloween. And then let me plug this one book. I always forget, but let me do it. Michael Winkle's book, Beyond Belief. Where is it? It's not on Amazon. Anyway, it's called Beyond. Oh, there it is. Beasts Beyond Belief, Sneaky Werewolves, Flying Cats, and Accidental Apes from Michael D. Winkle, illustrated by Mel White. Check that out. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. And everything just feels kind of crappy. Like, I wish it felt better. It don't. Just like every day just feels like you get hit by a car more and more in this current Trumpelgooch dystopian nightmare that's happening. I saw this one movie. God, I don't know if I should recommend it. It was good, but it was just so crazy. It's kind of like soft porn, but it was the Substance. It's on HBO and it has Demi Moore in it and some other girls and a lot of stuff. But basically, they do this like weird drug, like a cosmetic drug that makes you younger. But basically, Demi Moore split open like a cocoon, and a younger self of her came out. The younger self had to feed the older self, and the older self had to feed the younger self, and then lots of naked chicks. But it got really weird at the end, like some weird mutant misfit. I mean, I don't know what it's a creature at the end. It was just really weird. I wouldn't watch it again, but it was good. But
see, Jeff, I think Jeffrey should review every movie.
Demi Moore's still looking pretty good compared to some of these other women that you see that their faces look like they went through a Terrifier's house.
Were there any dolphins in the movie?
And I mean surgical work with some of. I'm not going to name names, but anyway, I'm not one to judge. But what now?
Were there any dolphins in the Demi Moore movie?
No, but there was some weird. I wouldn't watch it again. It's kind of like the Terrifier movies. I'll watch those again, but I ain't gonna like watch them every month or something like some weirdos do. But but that Terrifier clown, he's the new Freddy, and he's extreme. Freddy was gross because I never understood people liking Freddy because he's a pedo. So people wearing T-shirts of Freddy. I had like a wall poster of Freddy when I was a kid. That's weird. Like, he really is supposedly like a pedo, so it's just creepy. I like Jason more, but I like Terrifier, but those movies are extreme. Like, they're hard. Like, I like subtle stuff, haunting, like a John Carpenter movie. I mean, some gore's okay, but Terrifier, they're good, but they're just sick. Like, when he kills things, it's just, you're just like, you feel like you're going to throw up. But it really is gross. People like barf in the theaters and stuff. But David's on my page. He plays that clown. He comes by and talks about Trumpelgooch. He don't like him. So he's always coming on my page and talking about Trumpelgooch. Which I don't care. It's cool that the Terrifier clown comes on my Facebook and talks about Trumpelgooch. So, but anyway, it's good to have you all here. Did I plug everything? Yeah. So, Tyrone, let's start off with a little Halloween kind of spirit at first, and then we'll get into the other stuff. But have you had any paranormal or UFO stuff, like experiences or encounters or spiritual encounters that maybe you want to share or anything like that?
Yeah, I had a couple of them when I was younger. When I was a little baby that was still living in a crib, sleeping in a crib. My mom's told me that she had some kind of intuition to come check on me or something like that. And when she came over the crib, or when she came to the room to see me in the crib, she said she seen this figure standing over me. She grabbed me, and her and my father put a cross over the door, and just keep that whatever it was out. And I can remember every time we moved somewhere, my mom always went to get the house blessed and cleansed or cleansed and blessed, I should say. And then when I was in the military, I got wounded in combat in Afghanistan. I was officially dead for a certain amount of time. They say 30 seconds, but that's just the time that they gave me. And when I was, in that state, I had two individuals come up to me, one in black and one in all white. One in black said, "Come with me," and the one in the white said, "It's not your time yet." And then I remember waking up in Bagram, Afghanistan, away from the place that I got blown up. And then I want to say it was probably just this year in May. I want to say it was May or June. I want to say it was probably May. I have cameras on my front door, of course, just like most people do. And I was in my room that I'm in right now, my study room that I call it. And for some reason, my ring cam kept going off. Well, I knew at the time that, we have these little geckos or lizards or whatever that, they were attracted to the light because the bugs were there, and I guess that was easy feeding for them because the little light that was on top of the camera was white, and it would attract little gnats and bugs. You know how bugs are attracted to light, and the lizards would stay there and, activate the ring cam all the time. So I covered up that light, and I didn't have any issues for about 6 months. I'm gonna say it's roughly 3 to 6 months. Sometime in May or June, I can't remember exactly when, my ring cam was going off like crazy. I mean, like crazy. I even actually have a video of it. If you want me to try to pull it up, I can probably try to pull it up on my account and screen share. I seen this little orb just flying across my camera. And, the first thing that I did was, because I know about UFOs and I know about, how atmosphere and all this other stuff can affect things, and lights can affect things, and all this, that, and the third. I went to the Weather Channel to see how windy it was. And it was at least about 12-mile-per-hour wind. Okay. And you can see in the background, actually, I have 3 bicycles, my kids' bicycles, right in the front. And the tags that were on the bicycles were flapping back and forth like really fast. So the wind was obviously in that area, but the orb was just moving slow. I'll see if I can try to bring it up real quick on I posted it on my X account. I have it in one of my bookmarks.
You can use a StreamYard thing to do it somehow. I do it sometimes, but I always have trouble with it, but it's pretty easy. But yeah, if you can, that's cool. But yeah. I've been watching a lot of these like paranormal videos, and I don't think they're all real, but some of them are. But like Slapped Ham and Mr. Nightmare and the ones on YouTube. But there's some crazy security cam stuff. Like, I think those things really do pick up stuff, but there's some nutty ones, man, that are just nuts. Mm-hmm. And I don't trust it all, but I mean, I think some of it's real, but it's hard you just don't know. So when you watch that stuff, you're like, well, it could be fake. I wasn't there, so how do I know? But maybe it is, maybe it's not. So, but yeah, I want to set up one of those things. So see what I get in the yard, because I've had a lot of paranormal experiences, from UFO to seeing weird stuff as well. So I'm kind of curious to set one up and see what goes on if I see anything weird on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It just took me into surprise, because I've never seen something like that. I mean, it looked like an orb, and it moved very weirdly. And about 5 minutes after that, another one popped up. And about 5 minutes. It wasn't much longer after that. Once that one left, another one popped up, like maybe about 5 minutes later.
Well, I've had a shaman medicine man, Itzhak Berry from Inner Traditions, say that the dead, when the spirits can travel in balls of light. So sometimes I wonder if that's what those are, and it's just like the dead on some level. I don't really know, but that just gave me some goosebumps. So maybe it's true. I don't know, but it might be some dead people floating around, and you can be a little ball of light. That'd be weird.
Did you see a face?
Like a ball of light.
Did you see a face in the sphere?
I didn't see anything. No.
What about you, Jeffrey?
No, but I've seen beings of light. As we know, I've told the story 5 million times, but I wonder if those beings of light can turn into a ball of light, and I think they can. I think some UFOs are them as a ball of light. Like the two that I saw leave my house down here on Silver Lake in Florida, that particular day I was completely sober, nothing, not on anything. And just two people made a light, left my house like they had been in it and went through the roof and flew into the heavens. And they were humanoid shape, no, you couldn't see lips or nose or whatever. You couldn't see. It was just like a weird person made a light, two of them. So I think there's something, and I've heard of crop circles being made by those spears of light and maybe some kind of light being stuff and things like that. So there's definitely something to it for sure. And then, of course, Ron Howard's Cocoon 1 and 2, Steve Guttenberg, baby. If you want the truth, Opie on Shrooms, that movie. The little old people in the swimming pool and the little beings of light that come out of the cocoons and makes you young. Opie was tripping. No, I don't know if Opie trips, but anyway, those are weird movies from Ron Howard.
I found it. I'm gonna bring it up in a sec. Let me see. See if,
All right.
see if I can bring it up. And it was actually in March. It was in March. It wasn't in May or June. So it was March 21st when it came up. And whenever
who's that little head up there? I keep wondering and meant to ask.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
So that's Flint Dibble. So Flint Dibble is a gentleman who a lot of people say that he is giving out disinformation. The only reason why I have that is because I went to a convention in North Carolina called the Cosmic Summit. Okay. And it's where, a lot of people, it's in North Carolina. It's where people from paranormal, UFO, historical individuals, all kinds of things, Bigfoot, whatever. I think when I went, it was the third time or second time. I can't remember exactly when. It's fairly brand new, actually, or a new convention that started by a gentleman named George Howard. And a lot of people, so when I went there, they were handing out these masks of him. And I just kept it and I just added it to my little thing. Like, this is the card that you get. Yeah. Flint Dibble. It's just a lot of people just says he gives out incorrect information when it comes up to historical stuff. Gotcha. He was on Joe Rogan with Graham Hancock. You know who Graham Hancock is?
Yes.
Yeah. So him and Graham Hancock had a discussion on Joe Rogan. And yeah.
Cool. I haven't seen Joe Rogan. The only time I've watched him is when Dan Aykroyd was on, but I don't hate Joe Rogan. I've listened to it again. I just haven't, but I listened to the whole Dan Aykroyd because I like Dan Aykroyd talking about UFOs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have it up on there, the screen share. So if you just give me permission to share it, we can play it and you guys can see it for yourselves.
I think you can do it. I don't think.
Yeah, I already did it. I think if you look on the bottom,
I think I gotta add it.
Yep, there you go. So this is it right here. So I'm gonna play it real quick. It's gonna come up. You'll see it come up. And
I need one of those things. See what's out there.
What? You'll see it pop up on the left-hand side and goes to the right-hand side. It'll just come out of nowhere. I wanted to show that. Look, it was just very quiet that day. You probably can't see it on here, but the tags on the bikes are moving. See, here it goes right here. That's the orb that I was talking about. It just floats right across.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's very slow moving too.
Yeah, very slowly. If you see the bike in the middle bike, you can see where the wind is covering up the reflection sometimes.
That's definitely not a bug or a light. That's just something weird, like the way it moves.
Yeah, let's see that again. Let's watch it again. Let's see. I'm gonna start right before it starts. Watch the bike in the middle.
I'm gonna call it Casper.
You see it just floats right across.
Yeah,
right across. Very slow. No movement really. It's transparent. And it just slowly goes down.
Who is that? It's weird.
Weird, right?
Yeah. If it were that windy and the orb is a dust particle, you would think it would be moving much faster and in the direction the wind is going. And it seems like the wind is going towards the back of the picture,
Yeah, you
and
can.
this is going left to right.
Yep. Yep. And that's why one of the reasons why when it happened, I went straight to the Weather Channel because, for one, it happened in March. So of course, when I showed this online, some people said, they was like, "Oh, it's pollen." Well, I live in Georgia. Anybody that lives in Georgia knows that when it's pollen season, you will know, right? I have a black truck, and when the pollen,
I don't even get why they would think that would be pollen. Like, how does that look like pollen?
People say weird things all the time, brother. So that's that.
Yeah.
So, and then another person said that it was a spider going on its web, and I was like,
People are full of shit.
I think the web would probably show up,
or glisten a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like a spear. It looks just like an orb. Like, I don't see a bug or a web, it's just like a weird spear that's moving weird.
Yeah, and if you see on the left-hand side, like right here, you can see where there's water spots. Well, that happened because when I first got the ring cam, I had a sprinkler system where every now and then it would get messed up to the point where it would come and point towards the house, like the door. So it would actually that's actually water spots. But if you look at that orb, it looks like one of those water spots. And it was just amazing that I had some people say, well, maybe it might have been some type of mist from a sprinkler, because I told them that I had a sprinkler system, but I don't use it. I didn't use it in March.
It kind of dipped and went up and went in a weird, it was weird. Georgia. That's where I'm from. I'm in Florida now, but 20 years in Georgia, and I ended up moving down here by mistake, and now I can't escape. But escape from Florida. But yeah, I'm from Clayton County, Jonesboro, Riverdale, Stockbridge. A lot of my UFO stuff happened in Georgia near the Hampton Motor Speedway. Weird stuff, really weird stuff.
Do you know about the UFO National Reporting Center?
Is that like Norfolk or something?
It's a website that annotates all. Well, I'm not going to say all of them, but majority of the UFO reports. You can sometimes look at. Sometimes they have videos on them. Sometimes they just have pictures. Sometimes they just have the explanation of what happened on there. But it's a very big website that contains a lot of UFOs. Matter of fact, I can bring it up to show you exactly what it is. It's not just in the United States either; it's globally. So they tell you, where everything is as far as it's called New4. New4, I think that's what you was saying. Here, I'll bring it up.
It's like New Fork or New Folk or something.
Tyrone, I think it's important just stress that you called one the local weather station. When people are experience these kinds of unexplained sightings, can there be an atmospheric effect that caused it? And what tonight there's a comet.
AI Atlas.
No, it's is that the Lemon Comet? But if you go out claiming, it's only the tail lights of a UFO, Well, and the weather station says, well, there's a comet out there uh, appearing at the same time that you made your or making your claim. Well, I think we need to examine that the weather possibility as the best explanation, or missed. Did something come? Did something float by and seem like it came out of the mist, or was it not a misty day? So what are we dealing with here? If there was something that uh, seemed like it was like a mist that floated by the ring camera. So I think that's important what you did.
Yeah, that's the main reason why I had to confirm with the Weather Channel exactly what was going on. I didn't just look at the wind. I looked at the high pollen rate that was going to be, and like I said, that it didn't say anything on there. I think I took a screenshot of it and I put it in the comments section. So let me see if I can pull it up. Yes, I sure did. So I pulled up the screenshot of that day. So it was it said 11 miles per hour west northwest. That's where the wind was, and that's how it was moving. There was no rain. It was 0% chance of rain. And I didn't I didn't take a screenshot of anything else, but I mean, I can go back to that day, type it in Google, and go to one of those weather reports and see exactly what the weather was that day at that time. That's not hard to, go back and do, but it was only like 48 degrees outside. And the reason why I bring that up is because people mentioned the word pollen. Well, I've been for the last 5 years, been trying to convert my front yard grass from St. Augustine to Bermuda grass. It's been a really trying time, a lot of learning, a lot of paying attention, a lot of mistakes and all that. And I know that the pollen doesn't start coming around to sometime around April, and May is the time frame is when that's when you want to start planting your seeds and stuff like that, right?
Okay, but your sighting is dated to March, so it's prior to the start of pollen season.
Exactly, right. I think it was. I don't know exactly. So the pollen here in Georgia changes. The dates aren't always the same because I used to take notes on when I needed to do things in my front yard. So the dates weren't always the same, but it's definitely around April timeframe for the pollen. I could probably look that up and verify it. What is the average time for pollen in Georgia? But it definitely wasn't when it was 48 degrees outside, because that wouldn't, that's for one, it's too cold for anything to grow at that time. I can tell by when the leaves on my tree in my front yard start coming in, that's when I know when the pollen is going to start coming. That's when I know when spring is starting to hit. That's when I know when it's time to do all the, if I was to do anything agricultural on my front yard or anywhere, as a farmer, I would be paying attention to that tree.
And that orb kind of like goes dip and then kind of dips and goes up. I mean, I don't know what else would do. It looks weird to me. Sure. But I mean, looks orbish for sure. I know one thing we mentioned, Atlas. Man, they're about to go Heaven's Gate on this one. They're getting out of control. It's like some Hellbop times 500. Definitely. I don't know what to think of it. I know I saw some show saying NASA was hiding images of it or something. I don't know if that's true, but there's something like that. But it's just hard. You got to be careful because then there's exopolitics, which I kind of am skeptical about a lot of that exopolitics stuff. I don't think it's all bunk, but there's some pretty goofy stuff in there, so it gets pretty goofy at times. But I mean, it could be anything. I mean, it could be something weird. I don't know. I'm not Superman. I can't fly up there and take a look at it. But they're definitely getting Heaven's Gatey with it. They're getting kooky with it for sure. What do you think about it, Tyrone? Do you think there's something weird to it?
Yeah, I mean, when we go back to the ancient times, they talk about stuff like that, about orbs, UFOs, and their own different type of descriptions and depictions and stuff. So yeah, I definitely believe there's some weird stuff out there. One of the things that I always try to remind myself is that I can't judge anybody else's experience. Like when I shared that orb, a lot of people said that it was fake or that it was whatever it is they said. So when I also have ChatGPT, I bought the monthly thing just to test it out for a few months to see how it is. And I actually typed in when is top pollen season in Georgia. Now I just got paid for this ChatGPT, and it actually says tree pollen begins late February. So maybe that's why I could understand why somebody would say it was pollen, but definitely it wouldn't be one little thing. It would be like hundreds, thousands, millions of particles flying around, And then it says grass pollen starts around mid-April to May. And that's when I was telling you guys that I know when I have to pay attention to my grass is around that time frame, because of the simple fact that's when it starts getting warmer. I know when it hits about 55 degrees or 65 degrees outside and it's constant for a week, that's when the best time when you need to plant seeds. But that's when grass pollen hits. Weed pollen hits around often starts in late summer, August, and continues through September. So I can understand why somebody would say, maybe it's pollen, because I did mention the tree in the front yard. But that tree in the front yard, I'm not sure what kind of tree it is. Maybe I need to verify it is. But it's on the opposite side of where the ring cam. So you see the ring cam over here, and it's on the opposite side. So and the house blocks it. So you obviously seen that wall that was on that right hand side. So if it was to blow the way it did, it wouldn't blow towards this way, unless they was catching trees from somewhere else, of course. But like I said, it would be many different particles floating rather than just that one that just
But it's so slow moving.
Yeah. That's the thing. And it's so slow moving. And because the wind was about 11 to 12 miles per hour that day, you would definitely think that it would be moving a lot faster than that. And it wouldn't be floating, slowly across the screen. Pollen, anybody that, those, I can't remember those things, those little plants where you blew the little, it had the little white hairs on it, and you blow on it and it just spreads out everywhere. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it just spreads out everywhere. That's the same thing. If you take dust and put it in your hand and blow it in, it will shoot out in many directions. Right. So, and that's why I didn't understand it. But yeah, that is one of the strangest things that happened to me. I have another story. I spend many of my time. I told Mark this. I don't sleep much at night, so I'm always either outside looking at the sky, or I'm reading, researching, reading books like Lakes and Lizards from author Mark, and I love this book so much. It's an awesome book. Hopefully, I'll be able to meet him soon in person. But I sit outside. And sometimes I just look at the sky, and there's all kinds of crazy things that happen outside. And that's why one of the reasons why I went on that website, the UFO website, to see, what kind of, reports are here in my general area. And there are some reports here in my general area. And it's just interesting to me that, we all have our own experiences. Like when I brought up the fact about, the ancient times, when you look at the Bible, Ezekiel, they say that a lot of people say Ezekiel seen, what some people would identify as a UFO. But that vision, when he's seen the Ezekiel wheel, or what they call as the Ezekiel's wheel, he's seen it in a vision. So there's more like, was he meditating and astral projecting or something like that? Was he, separate, just in deep meditation where he can visualize things that may or may not be there in the physical form. And it was just very interesting because all that strange stuff is what led me to where I'm at today in my journey.
Cool.
So, Tyrone, what in your book you are covering some of the areas, where you are with the Army, just kind of in the area. So, how did your being stationed there introduce you to some of these the topics you write about? The Sumerian culture. Did you get to see some of the hieroglyphic writing, the petroglyphs? Seeing the was it the ball stone? Um, w- so what? How did being stationed in that part of the world have an effect on your understanding of these ancient cultures?
That's a good question. So I was in Iraq twice and I was in Afghanistan twice. In Iraq, I've been pretty much everywhere, all around that area. I was always on the missions. I was always on convoys. Well, not always, but a lot of times I was, just depending on which time I went. And, Mesopotamia is supposed to be where, the Bible or the idea of religion supposedly began because of the Sumerians. The Sumerians are considered the first civilization because of their writing system. That's what people say. That's what academics says. And they say it because of the writing system, that it was so advanced that they recorded certain things about our history, like the beginning, the creation of the world, the beginning of humans, and so on and so forth. You can find that in the Bible. When you look at the Bible and read the word Shinar, Shinar, that's basically Sumer, right? It's just another way of saying Sumer. And I know that Sumer comes from what is known as the Sumerians. And but what's interesting to me is that because the Sumerians are considered the first civilization because of their writing system, it's not because they had that much of an advanced writing system. Their writing system started off as a pictographic script. That's what I've learned from Dr. Nili Salman from Bar-Ilan University. And then later on, as time progressed, the Akkadians, the Syrians, and everybody else, they added a little piece to their own, to the cuneiform and, to the writing system and stuff like that. And that's why you have stories from the Sumerians, and then you have stories from the Akkadians, and then you have stories from the Babylonians. Well, being over there, I was able to see how people would have lived at those times, thousands and thousands of years ago. There were times when I would go on missions and we would be out there in the desert, out there in nowhere, and there would be tents set up, and people pretty much lived the same way they did when thousands and thousands of years ago. The term mud huts that was constantly used there was, them building their homes out of mud and clay and stuff like that, just like they did back in the old days, put the straws in the mud and the clay to keep it, foundational set and stuff. So they still did that. They still in some ways cooked the same way they did thousands of years ago. And of course, their culture and religion was still, that far going back from that time frame, but not necessarily the Sumerians, but the Islamic faith and stuff like that. And it affected me because I got to see how people actually lived. I got to see how people actually took the time to worship their God. They would pray 5 times a day. I was actually on some missions, which was I was fortunate to be able to help, I guess, save some of the artifacts that were there. We
Oh, wow.
provided, we provided security for them to take stuff out the museums and do whatever do. I know you guys probably have heard about some of the tablets that Hobby Lobby had, the CEO, I believe, who it was, who had some of the tablets. One of them was the Gilgamesh tablet, if I'm not mistaken. We provided security for, just moving artifacts. Now, what exactly they were, I have no idea. Where they went to, I have no idea. But they were destroying a lot of artifacts there, like they did not want it there anymore. And it's funny because it lasted all the way up until the war, right? And then when the war kicked off, all of a sudden they wanted to destroy it. And a lot of people were saying that that was paid, or that was a setup so that way they can get some of the artifacts, whatever the rumors were. I was fortunate enough to be able to participate in some of those missions. And, going to Iraq, not everybody lived, the way the religion some Muslims lived. Like there was definitely Christian Iraqi there. I have a photo somewhere over in this room that I met some guys. We called them the Chicago Bulls gang because we was doing a walk through an alleyway, and these guys stopped us and they wanted to talk to us, and they wanted to talk about basketball. And there was a group of probably like 8 to 10 guys, and every single one of them had a tattoo of the Chicago Bulls logo on their arm. So that's why we called them the Chicago Bulls gang, because there was a lot of them. So understanding that their life was different there, and that everybody had, some freedoms to do what they wanted. Of course, you hear the sad stories and stuff like that, but it was interesting to know that I was in the place where it's supposedly been the birth of religion, whether it's the Sumerians or the biblical aspect of Abraham. And one thing that I learned in my journey, especially being over there, was that Abraham and his monotheistic religion started around 2000 BC, when the Akkadian civilization was around that time frame. So it's obvious, and it only takes just, a simple understanding that Abraham would have known exactly who the Anuna / the Anunnaki were, right? Because that's who the Sumerians and Akkadians wrote about. But one of my questions always was which one did Abraham pick to worship and to choose as, the monotheistic religion, and which one was considered the jealous God? So it helped me, being over there, helped me talk to some of the people that were over there about their religion and their beliefs. And, there's a lot of people over there that believe the same stuff that we believe over here. The only thing is they don't have the news network and the communication that we have amongst ourselves. Like, we can get on StreamYard and 4 of us can have a conversation from 4 different places around the world. So it helped me being over there and having visual on how people lived and how they continue to live and what they did day to day. Helped me a lot in understanding my journey. And then being in the military, I was in aviation. So when it comes to UFOs, I'm able to distinguish what type of aircraft is what. I can tell by certain lights, or specifically, I can tell by the sound. Each helicopter makes a different sound. I was around OH-58 Deltas. I was around H-64 Longbow helicopters, Apache helicopters. I was around Chinooks. I was around Black Hawks, so I was, and there was jets on the base. So, I got to hear the noise that the jets made every time they took off. I know how each helicopter sounds by just the sound. Even here where I live close to a military base, and every now and then jets and helicopters will fly over. And I would be in my house, and I'd be in here, and I would hear it, and I'd be like, oh, that's a Black Hawk. Let me go check, just to test my skills. And I go run outside and see, yeah, I still got it. It's a Black Hawk. Or if I hear a Chinook, I can be like, oh, yeah, that's a Chinook. I can tell by the sound. Let me go run outside to see if it is a Chinook. And I was able to keep my skills on par of what aircraft is what. So when it came to UFOs, I understand what a UFO was, but I was also at a time where they were using predator drones and different types of drones in the military and stuff like that. And I have a drone, or had a drone, I should say. I lost it from messing with it with some fireworks. Uh, um, I know what movement drones can do, and I also know what a Harrier jet is, and all these other type of things, and how these different jets can take off and move, and stuff like that. So all that right there, in being in combat when there's low light pollution, little to none light pollution, I should say, I was able to see the lights and all this stuff. I never seen, orbs or anything in Iraq and Afghanistan, even when it was pitch dark. But I never stayed outside long enough to even care to look at it, because the places that I was always at, they were, Fob Salerno was called Rocket City. So, every single day they were shooting rockets at us, 3, 4, 5 times a day, not just 1 or 2 or 3. They would shoot like 10 to 20 rockets at us in that area. So it earned the name Rocket City. But I got blown up at a different location, and in Afghanistan, and it was in the middle of a bowl, but they shut that location down, after, I want to say, almost a year or two after I left, because there were too many soldiers dying. So you can see tracer rounds. I've seen, gunfire at night, with tracer rounds, and, artillery rounds and all kinds of stuff. So RPG rounds and stuff like that at night. I've seen all that stuff. So all that eyes on stuff helped me out a lot.
What you, Tyrone, as you wrote in your book, you're covering all kinds of aspects of the Sumerian culture. You, you get into the giant Tutsi people in Ethiopia, and the little people also in Africa. You're covering that some of the Sumerians sounded like they had the same haplogroup as these giants, as well as the little people. Thought that was kind of interesting. Could that explain some of the huge petroglyphs of the really tall characters, and maybe there's a normal size person depicted? Did you see any of those petroglyphs?
I haven't seen anything like that, but that's very interesting you bring that up, because when it comes to giants, I know there's
Well,
a
it's
lot
based
of
on your writing.
yeah.
So
No, yeah, I haven't
I'm
seen them
giving you the
personally.
credit.
Yeah, I haven't seen them personally. With my eyes, it's interesting you bring that up, because that was one of my ideas of what was a giant. And when you bring up the small people, I've seen cuneiform tablets, not in Iraq and Afghanistan, of what they looked at, but here in the United States, of course, at museums and stuff like that. And it's interesting because giants are described differently across the board. A lot of times, like if you read the Book of Enoch, these giants are sometimes described as individuals with as tall as skyscrapers. But then you can read in the Bible that Goliath was 6 cubits in a span, right? And that's anywhere from 6 to 9 feet, depending on what area of expertise you want to follow on that aspect. But it's anywhere from 6 to 9 feet. So I try to look up what I wanted to know was, who is the tallest people on planet Earth? That's what I wanted to know by numbers. I just wanted to know who was the tallest people. And some of it goes to the people in Sudan and Africa. They're very tall individuals. And I also learned that the smallest people reside in Africa, which they are known as pygmy people. Ta was known as sometimes as a as a pygmy individual. And I always thought to myself, okay, if Goliath was only 6 to 9 feet tall, and somebody who is a pygmy individual would be anywhere 3 to 4 feet tall, that's a significant difference in height between the two individuals. Who would be considered a giant? I also know when it comes to depictions, when writing systems, it's just like emojis. We can have a discussion with emojis. Emojis are basically a writing system, right? As long as two people understand the language, you can communicate back and forth with just using emojis. Well, when they depicted people with giants, it was always their gods or kings, and most of the time their kings were known as gods, so it was always, one-on-one. And the giants that are described, in the Sumerians, they're not. They have a lot of writing about it, but it never talks about how tall they were. The depiction just shows that they're much bigger stature, much more taller and stuff like that, and that's very interesting. But the idea of them, when I look at the depictions, I also try to understand to say, okay, this person is more powerful, because when you look up the etymology of giant, it has to do a lot with power, stature, how tall they were, whatever the case may be. There's not one description that fits for a giant. And these giants are depicted as people, and the individuals that worship them, which were much smaller. So sometimes I go back and forth and say to myself, is it just a depiction to say that a giant is another way of saying that I'm just bigger and better than you? Or is it just actually giants who are as tall as buildings, as like the Book of Enoch speaks of? Because when you read the Book of Enoch, these individuals are as tall as skyscrapers sometimes. And it just depends on what translation you read also, because in the Holy Bible, the King James Version, it says 6 cubits in a span. If you read the Septuagint, the Greek version, that's the translation from the ancient Hebrew and the Aramaic to Greek, the one that I have on my Kindle, it says 4 cubits in a span. So that's much shorter. And that's Goliath's height, right? Versus, what they say in the King James Version. So going from 4 to 6 cubits of a span, it just makes me wonder what was actually a real giant. And I haven't been able to see any petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, or anything like that, or any pictographic script of any kind in Sumer that actually showed giants in this form. Like I said, when I went over there, by the time the war started and really kicked off, they were already raiding the museums, and they were trying to get them out as fast as they can. So I'd never got to see them hands on, but I definitely got to see some of them here in the United States. Matter of fact, anybody that's near South Carolina that's listening, South Carolina is the oldest museum in the United States of America. And they have cuneiform tablets along with Egyptian uh, mummies there, or a mummy. They have an Egyptian mummy there, in there, and enclosed in a glass case. So I got to see most of that stuff here in the United States versus over there.
Interesting story. Okay. Okay. Here, our mutual buddy Ken God's Word has also been writing about these Sumerian tablets. Okay, so Ken. What? I thought I had my book here somewhere. I was gonna. I'll look for it. Just buried under all this stuff. But Ken has published our books. He's written pretty extensively on these Sumerian tablets. Do you talk with Ken about his translations? Do you do independent research into them? What do you? He has a couple books on the tablets. is there some kind of connection you two have with, having an interest in uh, the stories that are depicted on the tablets?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned Ken, because I started my website rebirthoftheword.com about 5 years ago, going on 6, I believe. And I was about 3 or 4 articles in, and he offered to publish. He said if I ever wanted to write a book, to let him know, and he'll publish it. Just like Jeffrey said when he was talking to that one gentleman about that Batman stuff, I didn't know at the time. I had already had one podcast discussion with Ken, and I didn't know he was an author. I didn't know he was into this type of stuff like that. And we had a whole conversation, and I had no idea who he really was, right? And then about, I want to say, the second discussion, I had to apologize to him because I said, man, I didn't know you was an author, and I didn't know you was a publisher, and I also didn't know you was very deep into this stuff like that. And he said, yeah, I'm very deep into this. And we had another discussion. And actually, our first discussion is on my YouTube channel. And we talk about, Zachariah Sitchin's book. I'm not a fan of Zachariah Sitchin and his theory about the Anunnaki coming from planet Nibiru. I know they don't come from planet Nibiru and orbit our every 3,600 years, because when you read the actual cuneiform tablets for yourself, there are a lot of great sources out there. The electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, which is online, and they also have a book, so you don't even have to buy the book. You can just go to the website ETCSL, and it's, like I said, it's called the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature. And to navigate it, you have to be knowledgeable about the Anuna/Anunnaki, because if you type in Anunnaki in the search or try to look up Anunnaki in the search, you won't find it, because that's not what the Sumerians called them. The Sumerians called them the Anuna, which is spelled Anuna in different variations with 1 or 2 N's. Or I'm sorry, three to 2 N's in there. And when you look at their depictions, the god Enki is known as a fish god. He's in a fish suit. He's known as a water god because he has water coming from his shoulders. That's one of the depictions. That's how you can tell it's Enki, is that he has his crown and water is coming out of his shoulders. That's how you can tell that it's him. And he supposedly came from the depths of the sea. Now, there's this book, the Oxford Handbook of Cuneiform Culture, that I read just about 6 months ago, I want to say, or a little later. I can't remember exactly when. My time's always off with that. But I read the book, and they gave a great explanation of where the Anuna/the Anunnaki come from. Now, there's a lot of people who would say, we don't know where they came from. We don't know where they came from. But we absolutely know where they came from, because it says in their cuneiform text that they came from the depths of the seas. In so many different ways. Zachariah Sitchin says when the Anuna/Anunnaki came from their planet, just like how the astronauts do as today when they do that little capsule and they land in the ocean, and somebody gets them out the ocean, gets them out the water, that capsule that floats with while they're, whenever it re-enters, the Earth's atmosphere, and instead of landing on land, they, the parachute comes out, and then, they land on top of the water. He does talk about how the Anunnaki, somewhat landed in the water and then slowly made their way to land. But he was 100% confident in himself in saying that they came from a planet named Nibiru. Well, Nibiru is Akkadian, just like Anunnaki is Akkadian. The Sumerians called it Nibru, Nibru. And this was a location in Mesopotamia, which we know as Nippur, Nippur. And it's an actual city that we know of. And it never says in the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature or the Cuneiform Digital Library Initiative, which is the basic location where you can read most of the cuneiform tablets and so on and so forth. There's nothing in it that says they came from planet Nibiru. So, the idea that, Zachariah Sitchin came up with that and all that, it was fascinating to me. And we talked about that. Me and Ken talked about that. And I gave him my sources. And we in many ways, we're in agreement on a lot of stuff, because of the mysterious translations and understandings of the Anuna / the Anunnaki. A lot of people, they they don't know if there's no absolute answer for the question where they came from. We just know that the Anuna / the Anunnaki possibly came from the depths of the seas, and they were depicted as so. So that was definitely one of the understandings that I had about me and Ken had it about each other, that we both came into understanding that there's a mystery behind it. And because of the Anuna / Anunnaki, a lot of people believe in UFOs and aliens and stuff like that. Before the Sumerians came on scene, there were a group of individuals that were known as the Ubadians. And these individuals is depicted in their artistic ways what we would consider reptilians, right? I think I talked to Mark about that a couple of times in the past about that. And they have a lot of depictions and artifacts that show, a reptilian-like individual. So when we talk about reptilians and stuff like that, I'm usually going to start with the Ubadians, because they are the ones that came up with these depictions and artifacts and stuff.
Oh, and Tyrone, did find a copy of my book, and I just really wanted to emphasize that you contributed a nice little review. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it was an awesome book. Like I said, this is the thing about me. I just started a Rumble account probably just like a couple of months ago, and what I decided to do with myself was to go to museums and historical sites around America, my own backyard, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of history in our own backyard that we don't really know about because it's not taught. A lot of people are so fascinated with the pyramids in Mesoamerica. So many people are fascinated by the pyramids in Giza. You got the Aboriginal Australians, you got the Norse mythology, the Greek mythology, you got all those places down there. But here in our own backyard, we really don't have an understanding of what we have. I mean, we have mounds that go back thousands of years. We have artifacts that goes thousands of years. So I go to these locations and I do a little quick video on them. I go to the museums, I walk around, I share what I've learned. And there's a lot of interesting things. When I went to the Okmulgee Mounds in Georgia, in Macon, when you walk in to their visiting center, up on the walls, they had these big old pictures of time frames of that location. And I believe one of them goes back to 17,000 years. Now, this is supposed to, a lot of people know about the Mississippian culture and stuff like that, right? So you're very knowledgeable on that, and you understand the fact that the Mississippian civilization started much later than what we know as the first indigenous people in the Americas in their history. But when you walk in there, like I said, one of the pictures shows that the history of that location of just the Okmulgee Mounds itself goes back 17,000 years. Now that's way before the Sumerians, that's way before the Egyptians, that's way before Norse, Greek, and everybody else. That's literally a long time ago, right? And one of the oldest depictions of drawings that some people give credit to, and I believe it's in a cave in France. I can't remember where exactly.
The Lascaux Cave.
Yeah, I think so. Where it goes like 20,000 years or something like that, give or take.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Way back.
Yeah. Just thinking about that and the idea of how it was preserved because it was in the cave system. But we have the Grand Canyon, right? That's cut off from all of us, right? There's places we can't go there. The government has it shut down. And there are caves here just alone in Georgia that I want to go visit and see the stuff. And, history is all around us. And I'm very interested to the point where I just want to share what I've learned, because just like you, Mark, you put a lot of time and effort in that book. I'm telling you, your book is amazing. Like I've read
Oh,
it
thank you.
twice already, and I'm going to read it again because I read every book that I own at least 3 times. And I promote your book a lot. I always tell people, hey, if you want to learn about certain things around, the Ohio or Virginia areas, or anywhere around these areas, pick up your book, because you go in great detail in it. I actually I actually told you that I took a lot of notes from your book, and I wanted to have a podcast discussion with you, because I like to ask questions about certain things in your book, and I have it on my Kindle, and it's amazing the detail that you go into, and the amount of time you put in effort and you put into your research, and I'm grateful for it, because like I said, it helps me on my journey. I want to go up there to the Serpent Mound in Ohio. I've already told you that. That's why hopefully one day we can meet up one day.
You're welcome to come up. Really so many valley museums were exceedingly generous with uh, information and letting me take photos, because they're trying to get the word out about what they have there. They want people to appreciate, like you were saying. Uh, we don't know what's in our backyard. We know Stonehenge and the pyramids. They get all the attention, but you know what's what do we have closer to home that's actually really neat?
Yep, I
And
agree. And
all the museums from basically Youngstown, Ohio to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, y- uh, were very welcoming, and I still need to go to a few more of the museums, and personally hand them uh, copies, because I uh, am just so thankful for their generosity. Um, I just got really sidetracked over the summer with the devastating flood, and I'm kind of getting things somewhat back to normal, but we'll keep talking about doing the long delayed show.
yeah, me and you have talked, since the early, since I can remember, at least the early of this year,
Hmm.
since at least January. And you know, there are a lot of people who are doing this because they love it, and then a lot of people are doing this to gain monetary gain. Um, I didn't become a millionaire writing my book, so writing a book is not going to make you a millionaire. And when I started my website 5 years ago, I always told myself that I wanted my website to be free of ads. And the reason why is because when I want to learn something from somebody's website, I don't want to go through and filter through 50 different types of ads. I grew up in the pop-up ads on Windows, back in the early 2000s, when you had to download a pop-up blocker. So you didn't have so many, ads coming on there, and now they just incorporate into people's website. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't make money off of what you do, but that shouldn't be the priority, because once money starts getting heavily involved, um, you from my experience, people start to exaggerate because it makes more money for them. When we talked about Ken and some of the stuff that we talked about, uh, I felt like Kim was being honest in everything that he wanted to do and sharing his knowledge about, you know, what
The
he learned.
translations.
Yeah, and he was very honest. I've talked to him plenty of times. I've had plenty of conversations with him. I just had a recent conversation with him about his book, The Pyramid, uh, Tech, I
Tech.
believe that's
Yeah.
Pyramid Tech. I had a conversation with him, and it was very interesting because I never ever, out of all the research that I've done, nobody ever really described how the pyramids were sometimes used as a sometime like some type of processing plant, I guess you can say, the basic terms, right? And it's interesting that we, like I said, he went through his research, and he, when I read somebody's book, I just don't read it. I research it because it helps me remember the material better, and it also helps me understand what they're trying to say. Sometimes I'll highlight a paragraph, and I was ask ChatGPT, "Hey, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old," right? And it would do it. It'll explain it, and I'd be like, okay, that makes a little sense. Can you give me some more resources and so forth? Technology can help us in good ways, and it also can hurt us, right? But in reality, I just wanted to learn exactly what everybody had to share about what they've known, and that's always been my thing throughout this journey, was just to learn from everybody. And I've been able to pick up who was sincere about what they wanted to share, and I've also picked up who was trying to just make some money off of this and gain some fame off of it.
Yeah. Wham, do you feel that you're giving away more books than you're selling?
I always do that.
Yeah.
I mean, my books are in several different formats. So, the audio books and the ebooks have always sold more than the physical books. I have never, I've been around in publishing for years, I worked around books for 30 years at various times in my life. And so I know that the book business, most books don't make people independently wealthy. You've got to love what you're doing. You can't, I personally do not believe in studying these things for money to make a living. I just don't. I think that, but that's just me. I think that for me, it's like whenever a commercial thing becomes part of something like this, there's such a risk of it tainting how you do things. I mean, there are a few instances where you can find an angle on it. Like what Alison Jornlin and her brother do, when they take people on ghost tours of Milwaukee and other places like that. But if you talk to her, they also do that stuff somewhat separately than they do their more serious investigations. They're more serious investigations. That work funds those things, so that when she actually does work for MUFON, in Wisconsin, she knows she's not going to get paid for that. So, to me, paranormal research has always been a spiritual practice, I guess. And so I just don't worry about the money part of it. That's why I do my job is other things. And sometimes my job gets in the way, but that's just the way of things, especially now, especially these days. So, it's like, I'm a Sufi teacher too. And I never ask for money for anything that any class I give or any practice I give. I mean, there have been times when, just because of the nature of a venue, I have taken donations, but then those donations go places, I give them to, my order, or I give them to people or something, and my whole thing is, this knowledge, spiritual knowledge, is free. It's available to everyone. It's just that people forget about that. So, I'm not going to involve myself in money in that way. There's nothing wrong with money itself, but there is a great deal. There's a manner in which money has, our emphasis on it in our culture has replaced the relationships that money is supposed to represent. And so, we've all been tainted a little bit by that, I think.
Wow, usually that little number up there at the top doesn't say very many because it only reads a certain location. But, well, I mean, we've been getting about 1 million listeners, but it's all over and on FM in New Orleans and stuff. You're listening to 107.7 FM New Orleans, but I see 60 something up there. Is that your peeps, Tyrone? Where's that coming from? That's usually a little lower. Your folks tuning in. You got a crowd out there. Well, everybody, it's great to have you here. What a great Halloween lineup. And I don't know, this world, it just feels really crazy right now. Like, I have to see a lot of right-wing news, and a lot of it seems to be alluding to some event that's about to happen, which I don't know if this Joker's about to really go full Hitler. It already seems like he's skirting around that issue. But they seem to be alluding that something big's going to, and it don't sound good. But it's just, things are crazy. I know last night I saw some UFOs. Now, I'm not going to say they're little aliens, yada, yada, yada. I don't know what they were, but I've seen a lot of traveling white lights in the heavens to where it's like a star moving, and it's way up there. Like, it's way, 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 way up there. And maybe it's something I don't realize what it is, but it looks like I saw 2 last night. This is after a dude that's been on the show told me he saw some lights down in Tampa, which isn't too far from here, and he saw a lot of UFOs. But last night I saw these white lights, and they're like stars, but they traveled, and I swear they ran into each other, like high-fived, and it went really quick, like, and they looked like they ran into each other. And I don't know if there are spirits or, orbs, spirits of the dead. I don't know if it's the ET flying around a little spear. I don't know what they were. Could be China. I don't know what it was, but it was weird. And I'm someone that has seen alien beings before. I've seen different beings. Actually, in Georgia, near Hampton Motor Speedway, with a friend, I saw some little cloaked beings in the woods standing near a black box. And they were very creepy, and we both saw them, and they looked like little skinny Jawas, like they've been hitting the pipe or something. They weren't fat like Jawas, but they were skinny. You couldn't see their faces, and they were cloaked, and there was a little black box at their feet. But a cat jumped towards them, and they vanished. But my point is, it seems like UFO stuff is amping up a lot, and I've always, with Robert Salas on, and then I just saw, I don't like Marco Rubio, but he was saying something about UFOs at bases shutting down silos. If now's the time for them to be concerned about a nuke, it's right now. So I think activities lighten up a lot, and that they're concerned about the Trump goose dropping a nuke or Putin dropping a nuke or whatever. They'll probably drop nukes together, but and seeing. But anyway, it seems like UFO stuff is definitely amping up on a lot of levels. And then, of course, I always bring up, and I get tired of myself even bringing it up. If you watch the Skinwalker Ranch show and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, there's so many spooks on there. The theatric level with the government spooks is at a level that's just, they're using that show as some kind of stage to do something. And I don't know what it is, but they're definitely, I don't trust it, but they're definitely spooking that show up big time. I mean, Chris Bledsoe, who wrote UFO of God, who has that book on Amazon where he summons UFOs. He's on there summoning UFOs with Colonel John Alexander and Andrew Bustamante, former CIA spook. Like, it's just spook. As far as government on that show, it's more creepy than the phenomenon, but it definitely seems like on a level. So what's at that symposium and stuff, Tyrone, what's going on? I mean, what's kind of the buzz? What was going on there? Are they talking about current events with some of this stuff, or what was going on there?
Like as far as what, like for the ancient people?
Yeah, or UFOs or anything
Yeah.
like what some of the buzz stuff there.
Yeah, it's all depending on the translations. Like I said, everybody has their own translation, and then these visions that everybody has is their own experience. So, I mean, it's obviously there in the ancient times that something happened. You got ideas of fallen angels, but I describe that as them coming from the top of the mountains down to to the bottom of the people, because think of it like the Mount Olympus. The guys being on Mount Olympus and so on and so forth. There's people depicted all kinds of stuff of things flying in the sky, seeing weird things like when I was talking about the Ubadians and what is depicted as the lizard people. In the Sumerian text itself, in the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, ETCSL, the website or the book, The Literature of Ancient Sumer, it actually talks about how the Anuna / the Anunnaki were trying to create humans. And in many cases, they created humans that had a lot of, different ailments, problems. Some couldn't hold their urine, some couldn't walk, some couldn't see, some couldn't talk, some were deformed, some looked differently. And you got the ancient Egyptians where, they have human-like bodies, but like an animal type head. So there's all these depictions and stuff about the ideas of what is a human or anatomically human, I guess you can say. And I actually write that in my book too, about what is a civilization first? What is the criteria needed to be considered a civilization? And what is the criteria needed to be considered a human? Because not every human is anatomically a human. There are people who have no limbs out there, right? No arms and no legs. They're just born with a torso, their organs, and their head. Are they considered human? Because anatomically, they don't have, 2 arms, 2 legs, feet, and hands, right? And then you have the idea where in certain countries you have I remember watching this one show when I was younger that this guy, his body almost looked like tree bark. I guess, right? Like he had like a tree like hand, and he was it looked like he was almost like turning into a tree almost. And then you have individuals who are very hairy, right? And you have these mythologies about wild men. That's one of the individuals from the Sumerians, the wild men. I consider that wild man sometimes to be Bigfoot because it's depicted as an individual who was with the animals, but had anatomically body parts like 2 arms, 2 legs, some type of feet, a head and torso and so on and so forth. And it could think, and it can mingle with animals, and it can mingle with humans. So it had to be some type of hybrid. So I understood all that stuff, and I know it's in the ancient texts. I'm not even just talking about the Sumerians. We can go to the Mesoamericans, right? And throughout their Americas, and they have their descriptions of individuals and their stories about the underworld and how the world was created. There's actually, when we was talking about the giant story, there's actually a giant story, and I can never remember the giant's name for some reason, but it's in the Popol Vuh. And it's about the 400 boys. Now, the 400 boys were a group of individuals, and it's only talking about 2 in this story, but they considered them to call them the 400 boys. These individuals were trying to build something, and they went to go get a tree. They cut down a tree, but it was too big and too much for them to move it or carry it or do whatever. And a giant came around, and he was, basically said, "Hey, I'll help you guys," right? Being a friendly individual, just coming to help these individuals out. And after it was all said and done, when he went to bring the tree log or whatever back to the individuals or to the location that the individuals wanted, these individuals would go into their house and drink. Whether it was alcohol or not, some people would say it was. They went in there and they had a conversation with each other, and they said, "Hey, this guy is so big and strong and powerful. It's only a matter of time before he tries to take over us," right? and make them slaves. So they came up with a plan to dig a hole, for him to dig a hole. And when it was deep enough, they would push the log into the hole to crush him. Well, unfortunately for them, that giant overheard them. And when they went out there to execute their plan and telling him to go dig the hole and so on and so forth, he actually dug the hole like they wanted, but he also dug a tunnel to the side. So that way, when he was done, he could yell out that he was done and that they would, throw the log down. It was supposed to crush him and kill him. So that's exactly what happened. He dug the hole. He went in that tunnel. He said, hey, he screamed out to him, hey, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And then they came, try to, basically kill him with the log. And it made a sound and he yelled out and cried in agony. And then a few days later went in the book, it says ants. And the ants were crawling down there and grabbing things from this giant, like toenails, skin, hair, and stuff like that. So these individuals thought that he was really dead because that's what the ants were bringing back up. Well, unfortunately for them, he wasn't dead. And when they went back into their house to go, drink and do whatever they did, they got a little drunk, I guess. He came out the hole and he crushed their house onto them. And when they died, they became known as the Pleiades system. Well, a lot of people know about the Pleiades system because they believe that there are, white skin, blonde hair, blue eye individuals that come from the location of Pleiades. And so that just knowing that in the Popol Vuh that the Pleiades were supposedly created by, I guess some people say by 7 sisters, it's supposed to be a star system also and stuff like that. It was interesting to know that it wasn't just sisters that might possibly create it. Is on our side of the world, honestly, they talk about how it was the 400 boys and how they were crushed in their house. And that's what created the constellation in the sky of the 7 sisters and Pleiades as we know today. So there's always something in the ancient text that talks about this. And then when you go to the book of Enoch, also it has a description of how the Pleiades system was created and stuff. So obviously there are stories out there that depicts this idea of, what could be considered extraterrestrials. I like to use the word extraterrestrials rather than UFOs because UFOs is more of unidentified flying object. If you don't know what a Black Hawk is and you see it flying in the sky and you say, hey, I don't know what kind of aircraft it is, that's automatic, UFO, unidentified flying object. Until you identify it's a UFO, right? But that doesn't take away, like, I think it was Jeffrey that was saying that when you said something about that you've seen these type of stars or constellation or something that look like they almost collided with each other almost. There's always these type of things out there, like in certain texts, like in the Enuma Elish, or I'll just say the Enuma Elish, which is Babylonian, goes back to the Babylonian time frame. We all know about the astro belt, right? Well, there's idea that the astro was created because of a collision of 2 planets, right? And that was a planet itself. Like some of it came from, Earth. Even some people say the moon is part of the Earth. There's a story about Marduk fighting with Tiamat in the sky, and that's where you can consider that type of a UFO or extraterrestrials. And the reason why I say I like to use the word extraterrestrial is because extraterrestrial means something outside of Earth's atmosphere, right? Came into our Earth, and that's an extraterrestrial. Interterrestrial is anything that's on our planet. And that's where, I believe that there can be many of the stories can be true. It's just how much of the exaggeration is used to make those stories, and just like you said, you've seen plenty of UFOs in Georgia. When you go to that UFO reporting center that I was talking about earlier, there isn't that many reports in Georgia about UFOs. There are some, but not that many. And it's very interesting because you can go by date, time, place, and all kinds of stuff. They have a world map that have all the red dots on there and stuff of UFOs and stuff like that. So you have that. Everybody has the opportunity to go look at this stuff and see it. And it's just interesting that, you said you've seen UFOs in Georgia. I've seen UFOs, or what I consider UFOs. And the amount that I've seen and the amount that you've seen is nowhere the amount that's reported on that actual website.
I believe Preston Dennett's in Georgia, isn't he? I know he's got a lot of stuff too. And it's interesting when it comes to UFO stuff is this cat, will you stop it? This cat got out of the house the other night and we didn't know it for like 5 hours. And I'm outside freaking out thinking an owl's going to eat him, or somehow he was in the backyard and jumped a fence, and I went to go grab him, and the way he acted, I wasn't even sure if it was him. He was freaked out and hissing and scratched me, and I was just freaked out. But he's finally back, and he's such a pain in the butt, but at least he's alive. He's a good cat, but it scared the living crap out of me because there's just so many things out there that will eat a cat. Coyotes, everything. But I don't know. I had a friend, John Ramirez.
That sounds familiar.
Fort Benning, Georgia. There was a case there. Let me see what the name of it is, where UFO stuff happened at this base. It's the 1977 Fort Benning incident. I'm sorry, I said his name wrong. It's John Vasquez. He's been passed away for a very long time, and I've never messed up his name before, but I'm a mess anyway right now. But John Vasquez, he was a friend of mine. It's been a long time since he's passed away. And it was sad, but anyway, at this thing, there's books about it, like Eden something. There's a whole book about it. And basically what happened at this base is all the soldiers freaked out, almost like, I don't know if psychedelics were involved, but it kind of sounded like it, and as a possibility. But they had alien UFO stuff happen. And just because you're tripping don't mean it ain't real to me, because I've seen stuff tripping. It was definitely real. It kind of attracts and opens it up, on a shamanic level. But this case is a real case, and you can find books about it and articles all over the place. Fort Benning, Georgia. These soldiers tripped out and saw aliens. I don't know. Psychedelics may not have been involved. I don't know. But I remember asking him about that. I'd have to dig it up to remember what he said. But anyway, one of them saw like an alien gray or a lady alien. They were freaking out, getting their guns. I mean, they were just going, it was like some crazy X-Files episode. And that was in Georgia. And here's where it gets really creepy. One day he called me, and he had gone to that base. He's always snooping around and probably upsetting them, talking about this stuff. He thought someone pricked him with a needle there. And this is like a military dude. Like like he would not make up stuff like that. He's been on shows. He's probably been on Coast to Coast. I don't know, maybe, probably. But he passed away, and I don't think it was from the needle. I don't really know. Maybe it was. I have no idea. But that was in Georgia. If you get a chance, look it up. That's some crazy, really, really. But one thing I was going to say, one time on Halloween night, I was partying, and I was tripping. But anyway, I was at a lake. And now I just do weed, so I've come a long way, which I'm not against tripping now. Just now I go to the emergency room probably about 50. But I've done it, but I have to be careful. But anyway, that night a friend was on. We were partying, and one guy was doing like diet pills. He got crazy and tried to drive us in the lake with his truck like he was possessed. But that night around that lake in Georgia, my brother saw red eyes in the woods, and that night I heard weird music, and the water was very strange and warm and just really weird. And I saw some beings that I'll never, ever forget ever. And it's like when I just talk about them, it's like, dude, they probably just like, oh, Jeffrey's talking about us. And they were reptilian. One of them was like a humanoid, and it almost like had Medusa hair, but it wasn't snakes like Medusa. Maybe it was like, I don't know if it was dreadlocks. I don't know what it was, but it was weird hair. And it was strange, and it was very humanoid and strange, like weird, like the weirdest thing. You better stop it. But anyway, next to it was a hydra. Like it had many heads, like Greek mythology. And they were not physical like us. It was like almost holographic. Like I don't know what the hell it was, but my first thought was, oh my God, I'm seeing fallen angels and the devil and Faust and all that stuff just going through my head. I saw that Mars head on Mars, the weird picture that, they say it's a face or whatever. And I was just like freaked out, terrified. And something they started saying to me, like telepathically or whatever, we love you, sing, dance, like saying positive Deepak Chopra stuff to me while I'm freaking out, thinking, oh my God, Satan's here, and the Hydra from Revelations, and I'm gonna die. And anyway, it was a strange experience, and I think they were reptilian on some level. But the thing is, the closest thing that I've seen to them is like I have these Mayan oracle cards that are like wood glyphs, and they're just like kind of like tarot, but an oracle. There's pictures of their gods on them, and they look like that. Like they look like Mayan, Aztec. Like that's what I saw. I've even seen reports of people reporting like an antenna being that had antennas that described one of them in different locations throughout the South, different encounters. But anyway, one thing I saw on Facebook recently, and it's on my wall somewhere, I saved it somewhere, but it was showing ancient civilizations and how in each one had like a statue or hieroglyphics or whatever it was. And there was a Hydra that looked like the freaking thing I saw. And it was like, it was one of those memes on Facebook, and it just freaked me out and gave me the creeps. And I feel chills right now talking about it. But that's one of the things I've seen is some weird reptilian mofos. And I won't ever forget it. That's for sure. I don't know what they were, but I don't know if they're fallen. They might have been. I don't know, but I know it was weird when I saw that picture in different civilizations, because those dudes apparently, you've even seen they like in the native stuff, there's things like that. So whatever it was has been around, and for some reason I saw it. It's giving me chills. That usually means I'm, onto something spiritually or something, but just some weirdness. But the reptilian thing, I don't think they're all negative. I mean, surely there might be some of them, but I know Dr. Torrey, who's been on Coast to Coast a million times, said that I have a golden draconian reptilian that shows me things and it'll touch me. And when I do see things, it feels like something touches you and shows you. Shamans call it seeing or whatever. And then later you can go outside and look and it's dull. It's like that touch ain't there no more. But I don't know if I agree that I have a gold He-Man draconian alien or whatever touching me to show me stuff. But he did say that, which is kind of weird. There's something to it, but I'm definitely not going to, have genocidal racial thoughts that say they're all evil. That's like some Hitler speak. That's some of them may be good, some of them, may not be. But the reptilian thing, what do you think about that? I know you brought it up some.
Yeah, that's interesting because I can't remember what is it. I can't remember what it's called inside our brain, but we have a reptilian, what they call a reptilian part in our brain. I can't remember the exact word of it is right now. But yeah,
hypothalamus.
I can't. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. I can't remember.
I know there's the medulla oblongata from Waterboy.
Talking about the amygdala.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
okay, that's why she's a professor.
But yeah, I believe that stuff. When you read the Bible, the serpent is described, or the devil, or the Satan, or whatever you want to call it, the adversary to God is known as a serpent. The same thing in the Sumerian text. You can see the same thing in Mesoamerica. You see it in Greeks and Norse mythology. So obviously, reptilians played a major part in this, and especially in our history. The snakes. If the snakes in the Bible, if you got bit by a snake, you look at the snake statue or whatever, and it's supposed to heal you and whatnot, and so on and so forth. I've always said that to myself that, like I said, I can't tell somebody else what their experience. I see that Z Sun Dragon in the comics said that I saw shadow beings in treetops in groups of a few times. I also casual and instinctively while he continues on. There's a lot of people out there that have experiences with different things, and we cannot judge them on their experience. We can only try to understand. So I give you what I mean by understanding. There's this condition. I'll have to Google it for the exact wording of this condition. But it's basically a condition where people will look at people just like me and you. Will be having a discussion, but instead of seeing, the human side of us, they see what could be considered as a demon-like face. And sometimes it looks reptilian. I have to look up the exact word for it. But this is a condition that they know that happens scientifically. Whether it's are seeing, the true self of some people rather than, the hidden factor. Like, I give a good example of this. You brought up Batman earlier. A lot of people wondered, why didn't nobody know who Superman was? Well, his glasses were some type of device that changed his look. So when people looked at him, they would see, if he had his glasses on, they would see Clark Kent. But once he took those glasses off, he would look like, Superman. And, it's amazing that, you can have a depiction of somebody and have a condition that portrays you as what some people will be like a demon or something, or maybe a reptilian. We don't know. I have to look up that demon face condition. I'm typing it in right now.
I'm wondering if they did something to my DNA. I don't remember being abducted or anything, but just having an encounter like that changes you. It did something weird to me, that's for sure. Some weird stuff.
But see, nobody can tell you what you experienced. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. It says for this Fort Benning case that like 1,300 soldiers were abducted. So it's a pretty big, weird case. Fort Benning, Georgia, that weird case I was talking about. Look it up. It's some weirdness for sure. But yeah, I love the Bigfoot topic, and I definitely love when it mixes up with UFO stuff. Like Stan Gordon from Pennsylvania has a lot of cases. That's when it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the Silent Invasion book that Stan wrote. It's he presents very powerful information in his new book on cryptids in the same areas. Very well done as well. What was going on at these specific times? What's the connection between the UFO sightings and Bigfoot encounters? I think Stan's
he's a pro.
Yeah, well respected researcher. I like him.
Yeah, I know that recently on some of these paranormal channels like Slapped Ham and all that stuff, there's actually a case on there that's pretty interesting with a sheriff that's in it that released info in North Carolina about a truck going down a highway who made a 911 call, and they play the 911 call. The sheriff actually talks about the case or whatever, police, whatever he is. And what happened is they played the 911 call, and it's a dude that's driving, and he's reporting that he saw a bloody man on the road. And then next thing you know, while he's on the phone, something lands in the back of his truck, and he's like freaking out. Oh my God, it's not human. And basically they play the 911 call, and the policeman even is there too with it, which is kind of weird. But he saw something that seemed kind of like reptilian. They had showed a picture. There wasn't a real picture of it, but it was like, I know in a lot of these paranormal videos, these weird like Nosferatu looking golem things keep showing up. I don't know what those are, but those are definitely creepy, and they keep showing up in different people's things. So unless it's AI. But no, but the policeman, that made it kind of, the policeman, he's putting his job on the line and obviously has permission to do this, and said that something really happened. I know in North Carolina, there's a weird reptile story about a reptilian being messing up a car. and doing stuff. That's a famous case there as well. So that's pretty interesting. But the Bigfoot thing is definitely pretty interesting. I like that subject.
Yeah, Tyrone, I don't know how much time we have left, but yeah, I did want to ask you about your
2 minutes.
what website, YouTube channel.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and close out, and then we'll let him give his links. But I didn't know time went so fast. A cat's laying in front of the damn computer clock, and I can't see. And I was like, dang, time went by fast.
Yeah, it does when you got good conversation just flowing without anything. You know, I actually looked up the word. It's prosopomorphosia. I put it in the chat below and stuff like that. But that's what is considered as the demon face syndrome. Now, they have articles, peer-reviewed articles on it. They've done scientific studies to show you where in the brain itself would show that what it would be like. And if you look at some of the depictions, when you go online and you look up demon face syndrome, and it starts with the P, it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 letters in that word. So that's why I butchered it. So that's why I just call it the demon face syndrome, because that's actually what it's called. Yeah. But when you look at the depictions of what they might have, of what it would look like, you would see that their ears could look like reptilian-like. Their eyes are, very scanty and, almost like reptilian shaped. And it's very interesting because, like I said, everybody has their own experience, and not one person on this planet can tell somebody what they experienced. They can only tell them, just help them. They can only understand what somebody went through and explain it in terms that is either scientifically or logically. But the problem is that science only catches up with our own theories and understandings. This demon face syndrome could have been thousands and thousands of years old, and it can explain a lot of things that happens in the Bible and in a lot of mythology, right? Yes. Somebody sees something that looks weird to them, they can say, oh, that's a demon, right? Or they can say, oh, that's a reptilian-like individual. We don't know the conditions until science catches up with its studies and lets us truly understand what is going on. But that doesn't take away the fact that, is this actually a syndrome, or is this actually something that some people can do because they have a different way of using their brain, right? Like, how do I know who I'm looking at is really you, right? My eyes only perceive what I want to see, and that's it. Right. But my brain takes that information, processes it, and changes it into whatever it is I want to believe it is. And that's where the idea of science, science can't explain everything, of course. It only can help us and guide us in the direction that we want to better understand. And most people need to understand, and I always make it harp on it, is that with syndromes like this, they're extremely rare. So when you hear one person talking about it in 10 to 15, 20, 30, 100 years, and nobody else has that syndrome or that condition, it's not going to be well received, because not everybody is able to explore that same scenario as the person that has it. It's no different than schizophrenics, right? Schizophrenia, seeing things that's not always there, right? Yep.
All right. Well, I better start closing out. We gotta end it. We got a show after us. But man, what a great show, and really loved it. And we definitely have to get you back. Good conversation. I like the spirit. You're good for the numbers up there. So it's always great to have you here, man. And good for you. Good that you're from. Were you born in Georgia?
No, I was actually born in Germany. I grew up in Georgia.
Cool. But great to have you. And what's your websites and everything, so we can get those out?
Everything that you can find on me is on my website, rebirthoftheword.com. I have a section of all my social medias and all my, Rumble and YouTube accounts and stuff like that. Everything you want to know about me is on my website. And,
well, it's great to have you here. Keep me in your prayers. I'm going through craziness because Rumble, well, let's just say, make sure on Rumble, it's your content, because if you share anything from anybody else, they're busting down on it. They'll delete your channel in a minute. So I even got my own stuff on my channel. I'm afraid they're going to delete it. But that's a long story. But anyway, but definitely seems to be doing good now. They're cutting back. A lot of creators started complaining because there was a lot of bootlegging and pirate, but apparently they're like, we ain't doing that no more, and you can't share nobody else's stuff, even if it's like a UFO stuff you like. Like a lot of people were doing it on there. Even good channels would share other people's stuff, but now they'll get you. So be careful. But thanks so much. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, Tyrone, and we'll definitely get you on again, and we appreciate it. And happy Halloween, everybody. You're listening to Nine at Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans, and we'll see you next week with a dude that has a car like Christine and has hearses. So be ready. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.